Picture the Roman soldier you've seen in films, gleaming armor, polished helmets, and perfect red capes. But history tells a different story. What did these men who conquered continents really wear when they marched into battle? What secrets lay beneath the armor, stitched into their daily lives, hidden in plain wool and iron? Today we pull back the curtain and reveal the true clothing of Rome's soldiers. Practical, brutal, and crafted to keep an empire standing. At the very foundation of a Roman soldier's appearance was the tunic, a garment so simple that it is often overlooked, yet so important that without it, the rest of the uniform could not function. The tunic was usually made of wool, a material chosen for its strength, warmth, and availability across the empire. Unlike the shining armor or the intimidating shields, the tunic was plain and practical, cut to a length that reached just above the knees. This design was deliberate. It gave a soldier the freedom to march long distances, to run if needed, and to fight without being slowed down by heavy folds of fabric. It was neither luxurious nor fashionable, but it was reliable, and reliability was what the Roman army valued above all. The tunic was most often dyed in earthy tones or shades of red. The red was not chosen only because it looked bold, but because it helped mask the stains of sweat, mud, and even blood. Soldiers lived hard lives, spending months and even years on campaign, and the tunic had to endure it all. It was worn during training, during marches, and under armor in the heat of battle. A soldier rarely had more than one or two tunics, which meant each one was patched and repaired repeatedly until it could no longer serve. In this way, the tunic became almost a part of the man himself, molded to his daily life as much as his sword or shield. A leather belt was usually fastened around the waist, pulling the tunic tight. This allowed the soldier to adjust its length. He could wear it long for warmth when resting or shorten it for ease of movement when fighting. The belt was practical, but it also gave a sense of discipline and order. A Roman legion on the march, thousands of men in their tunics, belts tightened and armor strapped over the top, was a sight that conveyed unity and strength. To see that much uniformity in an age when most warriors wore what they could afford was intimidating in itself. The tunic was also versatile. At night, it doubled as a blanket. In colder climates, soldiers wore extra layers beneath it, sometimes with added wool wrappings to protect their legs. It was easy to wash in rivers, easy to dry in the sun, and easy to replace when new recruits arrived. Its plainness was part of its strength. There were no decorations to tear away, no fragile fabrics to ruin in the mud. Though it may not look impressive in museums or illustrations, the tunic was truly the second skin of the Roman soldier. It was the garment that never left him, whether he stood in the front line of battle, marched 20 miles a day, or rested by the campfire. When we think of Rome's legions, we often imagine their armor and weapons. But beneath it all was this simple piece of clothing, binding every soldier together. The tunic was not a symbol of glory, but of endurance, discipline, and the everyday life of the men who carried Rome's power across the world. If the tunic was the foundation of a Roman soldier's clothing, the armor was the shield that turned him into a wall of iron. At first glance, Roman armor may look simple compared to the decorated suits of medieval knights, but in reality, it was a masterpiece of balance, protection and movement working together in ways few armies had ever achieved before. The most iconic piece was the larica segmentata, a set of overlapping iron strips fastened with leather straps and buckles. This design allowed the armor to cover the torso, shoulders, and upper back, while still giving enough flexibility for marching, swinging a sword, or lifting a shield. Unlike a solid breastplate, which could be heavy and rigid, the segmented style meant a soldier could breathe, bend, and fight without feeling trapped inside his own protection. But not every Roman soldier wore the same armor. In the earlier days of the Republic, many soldiers were equipped with chainmail, known as larica hamata. Made from thousands of small iron rings linked together, it was tough and effective at stopping slashes, though heavier to wear over long distances. Chainmail remained popular even into later centuries, especially among officers and cavalry who valued its durability. Then there was the larica squamata, scale armor made of small metal plates sewn to a backing of fabric or leather. This glittering surface provided excellent defense, though it could be less flexible and sometimes less comfortable than other types. The variety of armor styles across the empire reflected not only Rome's long history, but also the wide mix of resources and traditions it absorbed from conquered peoples. Armor was more than just defense, it was a tool of unity, a A line of soldiers in lorica segmentata, shields raised, helmets glinting in the sun, gave the impression of a single unstoppable machine. This psychological impact was just as valuable as the physical protection. Enemies facing the legions often described the sight as terrifying, like staring at a moving wall of metal. The sound mattered too. The clinking of iron plates, the steady rhythm of thousands of armored men marching in unison, became a weapon in itself. Despite its strength, armor had to remain practical. Soldiers could not afford to wear something so heavy it drained their energy in the middle of battle. On average, Roman armor weighed around 20 to 25 kilograms, distributed across the shoulders and chest. It was not light, but with training, the men learned to carry it for hours, even through harsh terrain. Regular drills made them accustomed to its weight until it became second nature. Armor was inspected constantly, repaired when needed, and kept in working order by the soldier himself. A neglected piece could mean death, so discipline extended even to maintaining buckles, straps, and iron fastenings. In truth, Roman armor was not about looking grand. It was about survival and efficiency. Every rivet, every strip, every ring of mail was designed to give a man just enough of an edge to hold the line one more time. It may not have made him invincible, but it gave him confidence, and that confidence, multiplied by thousands, built the backbone of Rome's military power. No piece of Roman armor was as instantly recognizable as the helmet, known as the galea. It was more than just a shell of protection. It was a carefully crafted design that showed how seriously the Romans took the safety of their soldiers. A blow to the head could end a man's life in a moment, so the helmet became one of the most important parts of a soldier's equipment. Unlike earlier, simpler helmets made of bronze, the Roman galea evolved into a strong, practical piece of ironwork, shaped to protect without limiting vision or hearing. The helmet was designed with several clever features. A rounded dome protected the skull, while a reinforced brow ridge helped deflect downward strikes from swords or axes. Cheek guards hinged on either side, shielding the face without trapping heat or muffling the soldier's voice. At the back, a flared neck guard curved outward, preventing cuts or arrows from striking the neck and also helping rainwater roll off the armor. These small details show just how much thought went into making the helmet not just strong, but functional in the chaos of battle. There were variations of the galea across centuries and regions. Some were plainer, used by common legionaries, while others carried decorative touches for officers or elite troops. The most famous addition was the crest, often made of horsehair or feathers running side to side or front to back, depending on rank. For commanders, these crests made them visible across the battlefield so their men could rally to them. To an enemy, they gave an impression of height and power, making the Roman line appear even more imposing. Yet for most ordinary soldiers, the helmet remained simple. Its value lay not in decoration, but in keeping a man alive. The galea also played a psychological role. A Roman soldier wearing one looked uniform, faceless, and disciplined. When thousands of helmets gleamed in the sun, reflecting light in a wave of iron, it created an intimidating sight. Many opponents of Rome described the terror of seeing entire legions advance with shining helmets, shields raised, and weapons ready. The helmet was not just armor, it was a symbol of order. A reminder that these men fought not as individuals, but as a single machine. Practicality was always at the heart of Roman design. The helmet had to be light enough to wear for hours during long marches, yet strong enough to withstand repeated blows. Soldiers lined the inside with padding or cloth to soften the weight on their heads. Some even used wool or leather wrappings to make it more comfortable in extreme heat or cold. A well-made helmet could last for years, passed from one soldier to another, carrying with it the marks of battles fought and survived. The galea was never meant to make its wearer invincible. No armor could promise that. But it gave a soldier a chance to deflect the sword, to survive the arrow, to rise after a strike that might have killed an unprotected man. In Rome's endless wars, that chance meant everything. Together with the shield and armor, the helmet completed the image of the legionary, disciplined, prepared, and ready to stand firm in the storm of war. Among all the equipment carried by a Roman soldier, the shield was perhaps the most defining. Known as the scutum, it was not simply a defensive tool, but a symbol of the Roman way of war. At first glance, its size alone was impressive. Standing about 1-2 meters tall and curved to wrap slightly around the body, the scutum offered protection from shoulders to knees. This was no small round shield like many other ancient warriors carried. It was a towering barrier, large enough to cover a man almost entirely when crouched, yet designed light enough to maneuver in the heat of combat. The shape of the scutum was a masterpiece of practical engineering. Its curved surface meant incoming blows glanced off rather than striking flat. The central boss, a round metal bulge at the center, was not just for reinforcement but also for offense. Soldiers could slam it into an opponent's face or chest, staggering them long enough for the deadly thrust of a gladius to follow. In this way, the shield was not passive protection. It was an active weapon, turning defense into attack in a single movement. But what made the scutum truly legendary was how it was used in formation. Roman warfare was not about individual duels but about coordinated strength. When soldiers locked their shields together, they formed a solid wall, almost impenetrable to arrows and enemy charges. The most famous version of this was the testudo, or tortoise formation, where men in the front held shields forward while others raised theirs overhead, creating a shell of wood and iron. Under this moving fortress, the legion could advance steadily, even under showers of missiles. For enemies unused to such discipline, it was a terrifying sight. The shield also reflected the identity of the legion. Many scuta were painted with bold patterns, lightning bolts, wings, or geometric designs that showed the unity and pride of the unit. From a distance, an approaching line of shields was not just a wall of wood, but a moving banner of Rome's power. For the soldier himself, the shield carried deep meaning. To lose it in battle was considered a grave shame, because it did not only protect the bearer but also the comrade beside him. In the Roman line, each man's shield overlapped with the next, creating a shared defense. One careless mistake could expose the man to your left or right. This sense of responsibility bound the legion together. The materials of the scutum were chosen for strength and flexibility. Layers of wood glued together and faced with leather made it strong enough to resist cutting blows, while its curved shape gave it extra durability. The rim was edged with iron or bronze to stop it from splintering. Though it might appear heavy, it was balanced so well that a trained soldier could carry it for hours without collapse. In the end, the shield was not only a tool of survival but also a symbol of Rome's discipline. It turned individuals into a single fighting unit, forged trust between comrades, and carried the weight of an empire's victories on its painted face. The scutum was more than wood and iron. It was the very heart of the legion's strength. If the shield gave the Roman soldier his defense, the weapons he carried turned him into a force of conquest. The most iconic of these was the gladius, the short sword that became the very symbol of Roman warfare. Unlike the long sweeping blades used by many of their enemies, the gladius was compact, usually about 50 to 60 centimeters in length, and built for thrusting. This design was no accident. In the tight formations of the Roman legions, there was little space for wide swings. Instead, a soldier would use his shield to push forward, then strike with quick, deadly thrusts into the gaps of an enemy's armor. A few precise stabs were far more efficient than flashy strikes, and in the disciplined hands of the legion, the gladius proved devastating. The sword itself was sturdy and practical. With its double-edged blade, it could slash when needed, but its strength lay in its thrust. It was light enough to be wielded for hours in battle, yet strong enough to pierce flesh and armor alike. The wooden hilt was simple but designed for a firm grip, even when slick with sweat or blood. Soldiers trained endlessly with the gladius, drilling the same movements until they became second nature. By the time they marched into real combat, each man could strike with speed and precision, his weapon almost an extension of his arm. But the Romans did not rely on the sword alone. Before closing in for hand-to-hand combat, they unleashed their other weapon, the pilum. This was a heavy throwing spear, about 2 meters long, with a wooden shaft and a long, slender iron point. The genius of the pilum was in its design. Upon striking an enemy's shield, the iron shank bent or broke, making the shield useless. An opponent faced with a heavy spear lodged in his armament had two choices: drop it and fight unprotected, or struggle under its weight and lose mobility. Either way, the balance of battle tipped in Rome's favor. The pilum was not simply thrown once and forgotten. Each soldier carried several, and they were hurled in volleys before the clash of the main lines. Imagine the effect. Thousands of spears raining down at once, smashing into shields, armor, and bodies. The chaos alone was enough to break enemy formations before the legions even advanced. And once the spears had done their work, the Romans closed in with shields and gladius, finishing the job with brutal efficiency. Together, the pilum and the gladius created a deadly rhythm. First came disruption, shields ruined, lines shaken, panic spreading. Then came the advance, shields pushing forward, short swords thrusting with relentless precision. This combination was the essence of Roman battlefield strategy. Weaken the enemy, then destroy them up close. It was not about glory or flourish, but about effectiveness. These weapons were not crafted for beauty, but for victory. They were tools sharpened by centuries of experience, shaped by countless battles and perfected for the tactics of the legions. In the hands of disciplined men, the gladius and pilum became more than iron and wood. They became the instruments through which Rome carved its empire. Beyond the armor, shield, and weapons, a Roman soldier's clothing was filled with smaller but essential items that kept him alive and moving across the vast empire. Campaigns were not won by swords alone. They were won by endurance, and the details of a soldier's clothing mattered as much as the iron he carried. Among these, the cloak, the boots, and the everyday accessories tell us much about how Rome sustained its armies. The soldier's cloak, called the sagum, was one of his most practical possessions. Made of thick wool, it was heavy, scratchy, and far from luxurious, but it served multiple purposes. Worn over the shoulders and fastened with a simple brooch, it kept the soldier warm in cold weather, shielded him from rain, and even doubled as a blanket when he slept on the hard ground. Unlike the tunic, which was more fitted, the cloak was wide and loose, offering protection against wind and dust. Its coarse wool naturally repelled water to some degree, making it invaluable during long marches through unpredictable climates. For many soldiers, the sagum became a constant companion, rolled up and slung across the body when not in use, ready whenever nature turned harsh. Then came the boots known as caligae. At first glance, they may look simple, sandals with thick soles and iron hobnails hammered into the bottom, but they were carefully designed for the life of a marching soldier. The open design allowed air to flow, preventing the feet from rotting in constant sweat, while the hobnails gave grip on rough terrain and added durability. A Roman legionary could march 20 miles in a day, and without sturdy footwear, no army could maintain such a pace. The sound of thousands of hobnailed boots striking the earth became famous in itself, a steady, thunderous rhythm that signaled the approach of Rome's unstoppable legions. These boots were not built for comfort, but for survival, and their effectiveness helped carry Rome across mountains, deserts, and forests alike. Other smaller items completed the soldier's gear. A simple belt, often decorated with small bronze plates, held the tunic close and supported the weight of the sword. Leather straps or wrappings protected the legs from chafing during long marches. A small pouch carried essentials such as coins, tools, or rations, while flasks and water skins ensured he could survive long stretches between supplies. Each soldier was expected to carry his own kit, often weighing as much as 30 kilograms in total. This burden included cooking pots, stakes for tents, and sometimes even grain to be ground into bread. Clothing, therefore, had to be practical, versatile, and tough enough to endure constant strain. What may seem plain to us today, the cloak, the boots, the belt, was vital to the machine of the Roman army. These pieces allowed soldiers to endure endless campaigns in distant lands, to keep marching when others might falter, and to remain ready for battle no matter the conditions. Together with armor and weapons, these clothing essentials formed the daily life of a legionary. They did not shine like polished helmets or clash like iron swords, but without them, Rome's wars could never have been fought, let alone won. When we strip away the legends, the paintings, and the polished images of Hollywood, what remains is the true picture of the Roman soldier, a man clothed not for beauty, but for survival. His tunic, plain yet durable, carried him through endless marches. His armor, crafted with precision, gave protection without stealing his strength. His helmet shielded his most vital point, while his shield transformed him into part of an unbreakable wall. His weapons, the pilum and gladius, were not glamorous but brutally effective, designed to end battles swiftly. And around it all, his cloak, boots, and simple gear sustained him through heat, cold, hunger, and exhaustion. Together, these pieces were more than fabric, iron, or leather. They were symbols of discipline, unity, and the relentless practicality of Rome. Each stitch, rivet, and nail carried the weight of an empire that stretched from the sands of Africa to the forests of Britain. What the soldier wore was not just clothing. It was the armor of a system, the uniform of an idea, that Rome was eternal and its legions unstoppable. In the end, the secrets of Roman clothing are not secrets of style, but of purpose. Every item had a role. Every piece served a function, and together they forged the most disciplined fighting force the ancient world had ever seen. To understand what Roman soldiers truly wore is to understand why they endured, why they conquered, and why their legacy still stands after 2,000 years.